Hey, this is LOA Today, the Law of Attraction show. Welcome to LOA Today. My name is Walt Thiessen. Today is Tuesday, February the 19th, 2013. And with me today is Kelly Canull. Kelly is a soul and life coach. Are you not sure what a soul coach is? Well, I'm not sure either, but we're about to find out. She had a near-death experience at the ripe old age of 6 weeks old. That's right, she was an infant at the time. What's even more remarkable is that she remembers all the details about that experience. She says that experience helped her identify her life's work, and now nearly 40 years later, she still pursues the same work, and she is here today to tell us what that life's work is. So, Kelly Canull, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Okay.
Great introduction.
Oh, well, thank you. 6 weeks and you have a near-death experience. I mean, that's got to be some sort of a record.
Right. I'm like, I love it here. Whoops, I'm out. Oh, I'll come back.
How on earth do you remember something from 6 weeks old? I mean, that seems incredible.
Well, by the age of 4, and that would be my first actual recollection, I would be sitting on the couch in my home, just squinting my eyes, trying to get all the thoughts out of my head, like one would be when they're meditating. And then around 6, I was writing these 20-page papers about my experience up in heaven, is what I called it back then, when I was 6 weeks old. So I started to recall my experience at 6 years old. And it's as simple as I had spinal meningitis, and I died from that. And when I went back up, I really just made a light joke about it. It's like I said, it's too dense down there. I'm sorry, but you've got to remove these veils for me. Diva Kelly needs you to remove the veils and send me back. And
this is not what I signed up for.
Right. I'll be happy to be of service in my own terms. And so my higher angels, and this is what I was writing about. I was writing about love and angels and God and heaven and, my experiences going into this beautiful space of love and bright light. I mean, that's all there. And then when I came back back in my body, I made a full recovery, right away at around 6 weeks old. And then at the age of 6, just really beginning to express, that I really have been awake. I really have not shut off the abilities that I know I have. And they began to expand. When I was 9, I became a medium communicating with loved ones that had passed away. And that really began to propel my family and my friends and, community around me to see that, oh, wait a minute, this is real.
How do you account for the fact that at 6 you somehow made the decision to connect back to 6 weeks? I mean, that's not something that every 6-year-old does. It's a rather unusual decision, and yet somehow you made that connection. Do you remember how you did that?
Well, it started off just being in school where they would send you home with this notebook every weekend, and you're supposed to write about your weekend, right?
Okay.
And so what I believe it was is it just gave me an outlet to put the pencil to the paper, and that's what's then called stream of conscious. And so the answer would say it certainly wasn't a conscious decision on my part. It was more about the bigger part of me, which I call my true self, was very open, was very much in the forefront, and really was the voice that was within me expressing that, we're here. And this is what it's like to have the veils off. This is what, it's like when children today are talking about it more, when they say they sense people's emotions, they might see ghosts, they might, have these prophetic images and dreams. It's kind of like this open field, like we have all these antennas up and on at all times. There's no, when you're in that state of innocence, there's no thought in my mind to turn it off. It's just not even on my radar. Until the only influence that would have kept me to question it would have been outside influences that would have looked at me with a curious eye and began to question me. But I actually did not experience that. I experienced either those supporting me or nobody talking about it, and I had this really inward-driven awareness that, once again, is kind of inexplicable to the mind, but it just makes it very real to me in the fact that it was so natural. Like it's like someone in one culture doing something, and they have no idea that there's cultures around them that would think that act would be different until they, had a projection or were able to see outside of themselves. Oh, other people don't really talk about ghosts all the time, or, talk to dead people. Okay.
So it was one of those things that it seems so normal because it's not something that just kind of turned on like a light switch. It was just always there, and you just never really, thought it was different. Never really gave it a second thought until finally at 6 years old you had a reason to give it a second thought because of a homework assignment.
Yeah, because my teacher, she was very conservative, and so
that must have been fun.
I had a parent-teacher conference. I mean, these are also those things that one would say, well, how can you remember back at those ages? It's like the TV channel is playing at all times. I can recall really anything, and so it was. She was very concerned, but ironically, my own mother was the other teacher of that grade.
Really?
And so she let the conservative teacher know, it's okay. This is what's called stream of conscious writing. And my daughter is not insane. She's actually just flowing. It's just open and flowing. And so, I give a lot of credit to my mother really helping in that hurdle, to say it's okay. She's allowed to be herself. So that was helpful.
Yeah. I mean, how many kids in first grade wish they had their mom as the other teacher so they could go to bat for them?
Right. Yeah. Very perfectly set up that way.
Okay, so you had this experience, and within a few more years you discovered you were a medium. Tell us what that was like.
Well, when I was 8, a cousin of mine was killed in a motorcycle accident, sadly. Oh. And I immediately went to my mom and I said, get me his picture. Like, I need to communicate with him. And I carried his picture around for a whole year. It's like I knew I could, but I didn't know how. And a year later, it was the 80s, and my mom was really into New Age stuff by then. So she came into the room and said, your aunt and I are trying to use the pen to do automatic writing. We're trying to communicate with, the loved ones on the other side, but we can't get the pen to move. So I ran in the room and I just sat there, and my cousin's name is Sean. And so I was just asking Sean if he would communicate, and then boom, the pen just literally began writing what is called automatic, because you just sort of let go and you trust. Trust is a huge component here of just getting out of my own way, trusting, and then I began to communicate with him. And the best way I can explain it is that even though there were, words on the paper, I had surges of energy go through me that knew, this is my cousin, and this is clear. So it was a multi-sensational experience that's kind of an all-knowing. So once again, the common theme is there is no doubt there. It's just a certainty.
So when the writing is taking place, do you actually have the words going through your head as it's writing, or do you not actually know what the words are until after the writing has happened?
When I was 9, I was not open to hearing any guidance at that time.
Okay.
So I only saw what was written on the paper as it was written.
So it was news to you as it was appearing.
Yeah, it was completely new. And
how did that feel?
Yeah.
That must have felt freaky.
No, see, this is the thing. It didn't feel freaky. It felt so natural. It felt like I've been waiting 9 years for this.
Really?
Yeah. It was like, at 8, when my cousin passed away, to be that adamant about carrying his picture around, knowing I could talk to him.
Oh, yeah, that alone, yeah.
That alone was clear, that, I was the type of kid that when we had a clock that would go off automatically. Like I would think, oh my gosh, it's a ghost. It's ghosts that are making the music go on. Well, it wasn't. It was that the alarm was set and someone had hit the snooze button, but I never saw that they hit the snooze button. And so my perspective was only that, you know, the music came back on because the snooze had run out and it was an alarm going off again. But to me, it was like, I never got freaked out. I was like, oh, hi, ghost. Okay, like, cool. Thanks for playing the music. And this would be like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's a really still another example of a very unusual reaction, because I'm thinking to my niece. Now, my niece is now 15 going on 16. But I can imagine her when she was 8 or 9. And if something like that had happened, she would say, oh, this is so spooky. And that wasn't your reaction at all.
No, you know, and so to me, going back, it's just like, this is so natural. And I couldn't get enough of it. Yeah.
Interesting. What do you attribute that to? The fact that you couldn't get enough of it? That seems so natural. Is that something that is normal for other human beings? We somehow block it, or is that something that was unique to you, or what do you think?
I think that every single one of us inside of ourselves has a part of us that remembers that there's so much more to us than meets the eye. And for me, I really attribute it at 6 weeks saying, you know, please remove all doubt. I don't want to even have an ounce of doubt that when I go back into this dimension that's more dense and everyone else is, you know, forgetting who they are, I want to stay awake and I want to remember. So, I mean, we all have gifts and talents in other areas. So as equally as a prodigy child might get on a piano and play this Mozart piece at 3, you know, I have my own sort of gift of keep staying open. But everyone on the planet has innate wisdom. They have their own way to tune back in and remember that they are able to take off their veils, stage by stage, phase by phase, step by step, and tune back into this wisdom and allow it to guide them on a daily basis, a momentary basis, where in my eyes, it's okay, it's perfect that they forgot who they really are, just so that they can come back into taking off the veils and remember who they are. I do believe that's the journey of humankind.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that actually has become the basis for what you've done with your entire life.
Exactly.
That's really quite a thing to know that you're going to do at age 6 weeks. But even at age 6 to 9, that's still remarkable. I mean, there are kids graduating from high school, they have no idea what they're going to do with their lives.
Right.
But you knew, and you've been doing it all along. Tell us about that journey. I mean, now we've gotten you through age 9. What happens after that and brings you up to the current day?
Okay, so around 9 to 15 years of age, I happen to have a lot of friends and family members pass away, which to me is just sad but also ironic that to this day more people pass away in that window, which for me was just more people to communicate with and send back to people on Earth, you know, give the people on Earth the messages from these beautiful beings. And so my friends began to know that I had this ability or part of me that loved to just, you know, kind of be into the supernatural. And then their parents began to understand. So when I was 15, a friend of mine's mother...
that's a big thing right there. Just let me stop you right there. You had not only do you have friends who are not only accepting of it, but they actually understand that you have this thing going on, but their parents buy into it. I mean, what are the odds against that for your average 9-year-old? It's remarkable.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's curiosity, right?
Yeah.
And it's intriguing, you know, and so and I believe the reason they were intrigued and curious is because something inside of them began to activate and began to say, wow, you know, I've got something too. I don't know what's going on, but, you know, I began to awaken. And this is another part of what I do on the planet is just by being awake myself, I began to awaken within other people their slumber, you know, they're part of them that has fallen asleep to who they are. And so I traveled from 9 to 15 without hearing anything, as we mentioned earlier. I just used the automatic writing. And around 15, a friend of mine's mom invited me over to meet with a psychic in her town
Oh my
who,
goodness.
yeah, it gets crazier. Well, she wanted to levitate a table, right? So she's like, let's levitate a table. Come on over, Kelly.
Parlor
Right?
tricks, here we go.
So of course I jumped on the idea. Sure, I'll come on over. So I go over, and this is a very pinnacle time in my life, because when I went over, the woman, I'm not sure her name, she was a psychic from California, she said to my friend's mother, it's just so weird. I'm not getting anything. I'm completely blank. And all of a sudden, a light turned on, and I became what is now called clairaudient. And so I heard this guidance, and I said to my friend's mom and her friend, I'm getting something. And then I ended up giving a reading to my friend's mom, and this other woman that was completely accurate. And that's when I took the pen and paper and put it aside and began to not need any more tools, no more divination tools they're called. And I just began trusting that when I showed up in front of someone and it was a message I was supposed to convey to them, that I would just know what to say. And so from 15 to 19, actually, this would be high school years.
Before you go there, let me interrupt because I have a question in my mind. The psychic that you were talking with that day, you say she wasn't getting anything. Is that unusual? I mean, was there something going on there that only you could get it and she couldn't?
It's not that it was only something I could get and she couldn't. I look at it as it was perfect way for the universe to just silence her for a moment so I could realize that I was being given an opportunity to hear.
It's like a temporary disconnection.
Yeah, it was a temporary disconnection for her because I don't know, didn't follow her past that, but I'm certain she, given the fact that, that's her career path beforehand, she probably just continued on. Okay. I do remember she was in great surprise, like, what is happening here? But I can relate to that. Sometimes when spirit just doesn't want to say anything, they will be silent, and that in and of itself is a message. So it was perfect, yeah. It had nothing to do with me being better than her. It was just a rite of passage for me.
What do you mean that in and of itself is a message, the silence?
Okay, good question. Some people feel like when they pray or when they ask for help, that it's falling on deaf ears. They'll often feel like, I feel like I'm not being heard. I feel like I'm not getting anything.
Oh, sure.
Well, oftentimes when you drop into that silence, you begin to feel like a smile coming over you, like all the divine angels are smiling at you because they're answering, but they're just answering in silence. It's no different than a human being who, someone might be having a tantrum or someone might be just going off on something, and the human being just decides, I think I'm just going to sit here and smile. Not condescending or anything like that, but rather out of love. Like, I'm just going to evoke love from this person by sitting here and smiling, and they're going to calm down, and they're going to, be able to get their clarity on their own.
So it's about calming.
Yeah, oftentimes when we're having a freak out, kind of when we're like, or have a lot of pressure on us, or think we need to be something or do something, or we're, just really worried or fearful and we're freaking out. That's oftentimes the pain gets so big in someone's life that they'll turn to asking for help from the divine. And so then if the angels are silent as a message, it often can be, disconcerting to someone to think, oh my gosh, I'm not being heard and this is even worse. But what I say is, no, listen. If there's a pattern here, you're always heard and you're always given an answer. Sometimes the answer is silence so you can, calm down and come back into your heart and find your own peace and realize that you already know the answer. That's also another part of it.
That's a fairly common part of a fairly common reaction for people, isn't it? To use their ability to reach out to the beyond almost exclusively when they're in difficulty or in trouble.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, this goes a little bit into you asking me earlier about my work in the world. I'll just pinpoint this part here. My whole belief is that when we incarnate onto the planet, we all come into the old paradigm. And that's perfect. It's a foundation set up for lessons. And so there's pain and there's suffering and there's this whole journey around, many, many layers of things. And then those of us that are on the journey to wake up to who we really are while we're on Earth into the new paradigm, we cross over what I call the bridge of remembrance. We're moving out of a world where we've forgotten who we are into a world where we're still here on Earth and we get to remember. And so what we're talking about here is an old paradigm adage. It's when you forget who you really are, but you're starting to have this, these hits or these ideas, or maybe you've been a part of a religion or, a spiritual path, but you're interested in communicating on some level to your angels or spirit guides or God or, whatever you might want to call it outside of yourself. But it's often in the old paradigm, it kind of gets to be a one-way street. It's like, I'm going to talk to you guys, and then I'm just so unhappy. I'm coming to you because I'm in a lot of pain. Well, then a lot of times it's not the full circle. It's a lot of, I'm talking to you and I hope you're hearing me, and then I'm really busy here on Earth and I gotta go. But compared to as you're walking across the bridge and remembering who you are and walking into the new paradigm, it's more of the infinity sign where it goes, I'm going to talk to you, soul or God or whatever, and you're going to listen to me, and then I'm going to listen to you, and then I'm going to take your wisdom and apply it. And then I might have another question, so I'm going to talk to you, and I know you're listening, and then I'm going to talk back to you and follow your guidance. And that's the path that I guide people towards, remembering that you're like the silence, okay? It's like you're still talking to your angels, you're still talking to the divine, and they're listening, but you're going to relax and listen back and take it into your heart, what you're being guided to do, and then go live it. And then that's the cycle of walking into the new paradigm.
I've got two different questions in two different directions, and I'm not sure which one to ask first. So I'll pick one, and then I'll pick the other.
Okay.
Let's go back to where I interrupted you. You were starting to talk about what happened after you became clairaudient and you were in your late teens. So why don't you continue that story for now?
Okay, and it all fits together. So I'm about 19, and I'm in college, and I just decide to start my own business. I just decided that even though I'm having fun in college and majoring in a very fun major, I've majored in outdoor recreation and adventure education. The real principle behind majoring in that was that I believed in direct experiential education, like get involved in something. And so I looked at my talents and I decided, I'm very good at being a soul reader. So why don't I just kind of set up shop at the local Unity Church and start doing readings for people. So I did, and I just started developing a following and beginning to show people through my abilities to tune right into their soul and be a voice for their soul, how they individually could choose actions that were love-based over the mental fear-based actions that they were taking. And so I started doing that, and I moved to many states, and so I would start, my business from the ground up and just start communicating with other people. And around the age of 28, I decided to write a book. It's called An Inward Journey, A Guide to Living Your Best Life. And it is a documentation of the steps you can take to begin tuning into your belief systems, your thoughts, and all these things that are holding us back from our life experience, and beginning to look at them, clear them, and begin tuning into your heart and your soul's own guidance. So this book was written 10 years ago. It's still very beautiful and valid today. But I also realized after I wrote the book that it wasn't the end all be all. It wasn't enough for people.
Okay.
Right? And so I started going into coaching people. And this would be when the internet started to kind of come onto the scene, and I started to build an audience online. And I began to take private clients through 3 and 6 months with me, where I would show them step by step how to move out of the life that they felt was old, they were stuck in, they weren't getting the results they wanted, into a world within themselves, an inner world, and begin to shift things on that level so that they would have a whole new outer life experience. And in doing that, about 3 years ago, I decided to create a program so that many, many more people could have this wonderful opportunity to have a step-by-step process to walk them out of their old lives and into their new, given a very, niche energy that I'm all about for people. And that is that the journey is inward. The journey is to tune in to that high innate voice, your soul's wisdom, that is here to guide you. And after doing this work, ultimately for 38 years, I realized that across the board, from religious practices, spiritual practices, and anything else I've gotten my hands on, it boils down to me to about 4 steps, and I call these the 4 A's to authentic happiness. And that's what my program really teaches. It teaches people how to move through what's showing up in their lives that they no longer desire. Understand it, get clarity and guidance on it, appreciate it, clear it, and send it back to love, and then activate that divine essence within them so that they can, too, live a really beautiful life here on earth. And so that's where I'm at right now. I have a beautiful 6-month program that people take all over the world. And on top of that, there's private time with me. And then with the program, and this is a key component part to it, there's a weekly live coaching call with me. And the reason I just reiterate that is because we're all here in this journey together. And everyone can use some book knowledge around it, the journal that I provide them, the wisdom, practical tools, all these things. Everyone can use this. But what really matters to me is to get people to show up and tell me what's really going on with them. What are they really dealing with? When they put A into action, what did they really get as a result? And so what I do with people is I show them a new perspective. I help people in an instant shift from where they feel that they are stuck and limited into just opening up the prison gate and letting them out, freeing them, so that they can both have a jump start into, oh my gosh, I feel a sense of relief. Thank you for showing me that. And then empowering them to continue on that path to do the same for themselves along all areas of their life that they're stuck. So there you go.
Okay. Well, what you're saying, particularly about the value of coaching calls, I have never worked with a life coach per se or a soul coach, and I want to ask you about that term in a minute. But I do, as part of my other life, my non-LOA Today life, where I earn most of my money. I'm an online marketer and web developer and so forth. And so I subscribe to a service that's provided by people who are experts in online marketing and search engines and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I found about that service is that the most valuable part is the weekly coaching calls. Because even though it's a shared call and you have a bunch of people all online at the same time, even when you're not directly talking with them, you pick stuff up, don't you? You hear stuff from other conversations that actually make sense and that resonate on levels that hadn't even occurred to you before you picked up the phone.
Absolutely, right? And there's just an unspoken formula where it's like, as the presenter, you have a little theme that you start off with, and then you have some practical tools. So people feel like kind of like resting, receiving, like, oh, these are great words of wisdom. And then it's like, okay, get your pen and paper out. Here's a tool that you're going to use to apply to get some change. And then, I don't know how yours works, but I always end it with a question and answer time. So people can ask me questions. And this is a very common thing for group energy. When one person asks a question, you're right. Everyone seems to be able to relate to it. And as a presenter, I'm able to tie it into how it's applicable for everybody. So people will often say, I felt like you were talking to me the whole time. Exactly.
That's how you know you're succeeding.
It's great. Yeah, and it's really, I mean, the desire as a creator of any program, whether it's web design or anything, is that we really care that people make these changes.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned your program is featured around 4 A's. I'm willing to bet that none of them is automatic writing.
No. No. I'd be happy to share the 4 A's. I mean, there's no secrets in my world. If you want me to explain them a little bit.
Sure, yeah, feel free.
Okay. So the first one is awareness, all right? So we begin to become aware of the fact that something in our life isn't working for us anymore. And oftentimes the very first stage of this actually is looking and kind of blaming someone outside of ourselves or a situation outside of ourselves. And so oftentimes in the old paradigm, people will start to become aware that there's something going on, like this relationship, this job, my health or my finances, something's not the way I want it to. But when we only look outside of ourselves and we start to think it's because of someone else, then we trail away from the 4 A's, right? We get back into our rut and life doesn't seem to necessarily change. And so what I am all about is awareness that you start to recognize that you are responsible for this thing that's not working anymore. And once you move into a state of responsibility, then you can walk the 4 A's that I talk about. So the next phase is allowing. You start to, like, you may not be happy about what's going on, but you allow yourself to begin to receive some kind of clarity, wisdom, and guidance. And, you joked about the automatic writing, but I will say that in my book, An Inward Journey, I have a chapter where I teach people how to tune in to the voice of their soul and awaken to it and have a dialogue with it. And it's so important to me that it's actually one of the free gifts that I give on my website is that full chapter. So everyone has access to learning it. And this is just one tool. There's many tools, there's many practitioners in the world, there's many modalities that fall into the category of allowing. So you basically allow yourself to use whatever tool set you have to start to get clarity and wisdom and guidance by tuning into your heart and your soul around, okay, well, why is this thing happening in my life? I'll take responsibility for it, but I'd like to have, more information. So you're basically allowing yourself to get that. And how you receive it, once again, is very indicative of what tools are you going to use, and the universe will speak to us always. When we ask, we will always get an answer. And so sometimes for some people, this stage is years long. It's like, okay, I really want to, communicate to my soul, and I really want to learn, about how to follow the guidance and listen. And then when you're ready, you can go to the third stage. And by the way, you can go through all these 4 stages in 1 second. It's just a matter of how much are we in our own way that we would keep ourselves walking through this process over time. Okay. So we're trying to plant that. But the third one then is appreciating. Okay, so let's use an example of someone who's, on their spiritual journey and they're like, I'm ready. I want to walk through all these 4 in an instant. Well, what that would look like then is they get into the stage of appreciating. and they decide, okay, I'm already going to be responsible for the fact that I'm creating this drama in my life in some way. I allowed myself to get some clarity, and wow, this goes all the way back to my childhood. I can see how my mom used to treat me this way, and I'm just treating the world the same way. Okay, well, I'm going to appreciate myself. And this is the third A. I'm going to appreciate that I actually have something to do with this, and I really do not desire to be this way in the world anymore. I didn't like it when my mom treated me this way, so why am I doing it? And so then what you do is you also use whatever modality, whatever technique, whatever practitioner you want to see. You know, it's like this is the big spiritual journey out there. There's thousands and thousands of tools that can also help people with this process. It can happen in an instant, but it can also mean someone is guided to go to a healer or a hypnotherapist or a counselor or a coach. I mean, it doesn't matter. There's no judgment. This is where you go release it. You release the block, the limitation, the judgment, the old energy that was the story behind why you're showing up in this way today with the same results from your childhood that you didn't like being unloved and, you know, not feeling worthy and, you know, feeling a lot of anger and, you know, not seeming to really love what you're doing in the world. You know, these are things that have these inner stories within them that you're willing to appreciate and set free. Okay, when you do the clearing and set it free, the fourth A naturally occurs. And this is called activation. And this is where I really hone in on, because I feel like there's a lot of things out in the world that miss this fourth piece. And so the fourth one is, once you are taking self-responsibility, you're aware, you're allowing yourself to get clarity, you appreciate it, you clear it with love and joy and grace and ease, then you allow the activation of who you always have been, the part of you that's actually untouched by any of your life's experiences, the purest part of you, to come from within and begin to expand. And this is where people will report feeling, you know, more calm. They just react to the world differently. They begin to open up to their creativity. They find their life purpose. They have a deeper relationship with their family. They see life from new perspectives. Okay, and then the list kind of goes on. And so this is a process that some people will take a while to go through, and others have already, maybe not even consciously, gone through some of these stages. So by the time they hear about the 4As, they're excited to just use it over and over and over again.
Yeah, I can see that. As you were going through the description, right from the beginning when you were talking about awareness, one of the thoughts that came to my mind actually tied in. Remember I said there were two different questions I had to ask?
Yeah.
Well, this is the other question. The other question was about, it's actually kind of autobiographical because it has for many years been my biggest block, if you will. And I have over time finally learned how to discover this thing that I'm about to talk about. But it was a real challenge, and it still remains a challenge to me to this day, and that is very often it doesn't seem like there are any answers coming. I mean, we're not talking about there's no answers this time. We're talking about there never seem to be answers coming. And I wonder if you could just kind of address that for a moment. Why is it that for some of us, it seems like we put stuff out there and there doesn't seem to be anything that comes back?
Okay, so the main block is almost so obvious that it gets missed. And the block is that some part of you doesn't believe that you deserve to receive. And this goes into all areas of one's life.
Deserve to receive. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like this, and you got to kind of step back and be the observer of your life. And if I were to say, I can guarantee you 100% that when you ask, you will always get an answer. Well, if the mind wants to look, it's always looking left. Let's say you're always looking left. And then you go, you know, Kelly, this can't be true because I'm not getting any answers. But all to your right, There's all these answers coming. And someone from the audience can go, just look right. Just look right. It's all there. There's a reason why you would limit yourself to only look left. And it's what's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. And self-fulfilling prophecies start with if, blank, then blank. So your self-fulfilling prophecy could be something like, if I ask for answers, then I don't get them, then I can feel sorry for myself. Okay, so this is hypothetical, but let's say as a child, you really felt love when you didn't get attention, and then that sounds really crazy, but it's like, let's say you just didn't get the attention you wanted, so you learned to self-soothe. You just got your own answers. You just self-soothe yourself with maybe sucking on your pacifier or a bottle, or later in life a blanket, and later a teddy bear, and later you picked other things. Well, the prophecy would be, nobody listens to me, nobody gets me, nobody helps me, no one supports me. I have to do it all by myself. So then when you're an adult and you're saying, well, okay, I'm going to ask for help, the story you're running inside yourself is, nope, I'm not going to allow anybody to help me because I already self-soothed myself for, 20 years. And I know what's best for me, and I'm going to take care of me, and I'll do it all by myself. And so I'm only going to look left because I know actually innately inside, if I look right, I'll get the answers. And then I would probably have to prove myself wrong. And so the ego keeps you looking left because it's so afraid that you would actually have to prove yourself wrong from all these stories. And then what it really means is that you'd have to face the pain inside that you felt when you were ignored.
Yeah.
Okay.
And certainly the tapes, as my wife likes to describe them, from childhood, they play this same kind of role in a number of different ways in everybody's lives, whether it's on the particular topic of why am I not getting answers, or almost anything else that's related to who we are and what our spiritual journey is and so forth. So, what you're tapping into here is accurate for me. For me, it was what I discovered is that just by being willing to believe that the answers were there, the answers started to come. And so in the sense of what you were describing, in terms of getting the doubt out of the way, getting I can't remember how you said it, but basically removing the idea that I have to do all the soothing myself, there can't be any answers out there. Just by pushing that out of the way, the stuff starts to come in weird ways that, well, they seem weird because they've never come in before.
Right, exactly. And so, this is a good subject, but you're right. It crosses over a lot of things. We talked about the silence earlier. The common theme here is what's showing up in people's lives that seems to be a constant pattern. And,
yes.
The thing that you're bringing up is that, once you become aware of it and you get some clarity, you see how you already naturally went through the 4 A's. You got in, you appreciated it, you cleared it, and then, oh my gosh, all these things started to come in. Well, that would be the activation. You activated yourself to begin to have a different journey. And that's the thing. And that's the thing, like, for me personally, I don't like to see people suffer when they don't need to. And so there's a difference between only walking a few of those A's. And so, for example, if you're aware of this and you're allowing yourself to get some guidance, but you don't clear it out, you just shove other things on top of it. That's very different, and that's what a lot of people do in the old paradigm. So then they bury the wounds and they bury the pain even more. I will just say that it's not the same if you just shove things on top of it out of denial or avoidance or wanting to not, face the fear of the pain. It's much more freeing to just allow the memory to come up and the experience to come up and through you, clear it, set it free, let it go, so that you can have a whole new experience. Like why would you put layer upon layer upon layer of old clothes all over on top of you and try to walk in the world when it's time to just kind of purge, give away your old clothes and go buy new ones, kind of an analogy. So yeah, it's, I'm very passionate with my work with the 4 A's Authentic Happiness in my program to show people over and over and over again, Because the thing is people miss what's really showing up in front of them, and all I do is point out to them, that's where you can run the 4As. Okay, that's where you can find, like, it's all right around you. And so then people start to get it, because we've been asleep for so long that, not only now is it time to wake back up, but what I'm really, proud of is the fact that there are solutions out there that my program is, but lots of things are, lots of solutions out there in the world. I'm proud, meaning I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm grateful that there are these ways, that people can wake up now with the solution right here. Like, no need to have pain while you actually release the pain.
Yeah. You've mentioned a few times, especially when you were talking, of course, about the third A, appreciating, you used the phrase that a lot of people use, set free. What does set free mean to you? What exactly is setting free?
Okay, so once again, there's, these stories that we took in, we magnetized them to ourselves energetically. We made them our own, whether it was seeing our parents, our family, our peers, or, colleagues, and whatever it was from our past that we adopted, we took it on as our own. When we start to see in self-responsibility that, oh my gosh, I don't need to be this way, I don't need to act or react to the world this way, then this is like taking that magnet that you put on yourself and you're offering it back to source, is what I say. You're setting it free to let it be in the energy of from what it originated from. And this is my own take. I believe everything originated from love. It just takes on different forms to serve our highest good. So when you're appreciating something that's very painful, the idea is to realize it originated from love. It just took on a different form to serve you. So you're just taking it and you're setting it free, and you're saying, thank you. Thank you for being love. Thank you for looking like anger. And now I'm returning you back to love.
It's almost like recycling, isn't it? I mean, basically taking something that has manifested in matter and returning it back to energy because you're no longer having any need of it anymore.
Yeah, and to me personally, I like this process. It feels better to me than to think of, okay, I don't like that about myself anymore, and then people judge it, and that's when they start wanting to bury it inside and put all these layers on top of it. And so what I'm all about is, can you feel that this once was love? And, people are super angry in the moment. That's okay. Take it off. Hold it, in front of you and just set it free. You don't have to look at it anymore. You don't even have to feel it anymore. But when you set it free, you're in the stage of appreciation. So there's an essence of already, appreciating it in that moment, even if you're super angry at it.
It's so easy to say this, but really that can be one of the most challenging things we face, isn't it? The idea of trying, as you said, to see the original love in it. And when you're angry at someone or at a situation or whatever, that's about the last thing that you're thinking about. Love? Are you kidding? So-and-so did this to me. They said that and that. They screwed up my career. They ruined my love life, whatever it might be. Or perhaps this series of events that the world is conspiring against me, yada, 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 yada. Looking for love in that? Are you kidding? It's about the last thing we think of.
Right. And so there's stages to understand your life before you can get there. Like I said, sometimes it takes people years to run through the first 2 A's. And a part of that would be, I also have a belief that everyone is an actor or an actress playing out a part to support us. Everyone. So when I have an instance show up and this person's, making me mad or what have you, I do have to step back and own responsibility for creating it, realizing, okay, whoa, new perspective. I am super angry, but why don't I look at why I'm really angry? Because if this person is just an actor or an actress playing out a part to trigger my anger, it will be beneficial for me to separate myself from thinking they're doing it to me, but rather they're gifting me by triggering my anger. And then we have to be able to go back, step back from that person, that situation, that experience. And then this is when this might be the beginning of your 4As. Then you're like, I'm going to learn this spirit right now that I am so angry. But I'm going to allow myself to get some clarity and guidance. Where is this anger really coming from? my friend, my lover, my whatever, they just stirred it up in me. But where is this really coming from? And then you go through allowing yourself to get some clarity. It may take a week to get the clarity, but then when you get it, you have an aha moment, you appreciate it, you set it free, and then you activate in your heart this love, and then you can go back. I mean, I had this happen recently, and I had to tell my friend, I need a little bit of space from you, because I didn't want to make it about him. I wanted to realize he was playing a role for me, but yeah, human condition, I want to make it about him right away.
Sure.
So it takes, self-discipline to step away, see someone as an actor or an actress, and be willing to change your life. And that's the point. If you don't want your life to change and you want to keep blaming people and getting the same results and seeing the same patterns, then that's what you want to do. That's really the goal you want to meet. So you're not going to want to do the 4As because you want to suffer. But if you really
Which sounds weird, but we see that all the time, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, it happens everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a reason for it. Like just from the observer point of view, I am okay with that because I honor everyone for where they are. And that's what the old paradigm soup is all about. But if someone in my awareness is really interested in changing, then to me, they've already stepped out of the old paradigm onto the bridge of remembrance. And so, like, for example, as a coach, then I'm going to be responsible to help that person realize, do you see how you're being pulled back in the old paradigm? But your foundation is on this bridge now. So you really do care about change. And I'm going to teach you how to walk step by step out of that old patterning. And, that's the greatest thing, Walt, that I've learned over all these years, is that people would like their hand held step by step as they are releasing the old world. Just like someone who needs a physical therapist to help them start to learn to walk again. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. And I have compassion and I have love, and this program, for one example of many things that are out there in the world, that's it. I mean, we have to be kind to ourselves. We need answers, and we need step-by-step handheld and initially, and that's beautiful.
Of course, one thing that people who perhaps are willing to change, even if they feel stuck in their paradigms, they wonder, okay, if I go through this awareness and then allowing and appreciating and activation, I mean, how long is that going to take? That's the question that many people will ask themselves first thing out of the gate. And of course, the answer is, well, how quickly or how slowly are you going to go through the process of actually doing all of that? And that's impossible for anybody to measure up front. But that's the thought everybody has. And how long is this thing going to take?
It totally is. And the only thing that I put a big red warning flag on that statement when you find yourself saying it is it's your ego that wants, one, for you to hurry up and get out of this, next thing you're doing. Like, let's move on. Let's get back to our comfort zone. And two, it's also a huge part of that ego that wants to pull you back and make you, not comfortable in the pain and the suffering, but also, is not interested in the change. So,
that's a really interesting point right there. The ego is not interested in change.
We have in the old paradigm, let our ego guide our whole lives. And so it is not interested in the kind of change that self-work creates. Your mind will convince you that, what are you talking about? I love change. Look at how many times we've changed this, that, and the other. Well, yeah, but you're always letting your ego guide the way. When you're ready to really shift your life, you're willing to let the ego be your friend, but it's not your leader. And you begin to let your soul's guidance, your innate wisdom, your intuition be the leader and start to show you a new way and a new path. And it's just like you mentioned earlier, once you did clear that block, the activation of your true self began to turn you to the right and show you these answers are right here. They've always been here. You just weren't willing to look at them, but now you are. Right?
The experience of that is really weird, too. I mean, when those answers start to come, because they come from the strangest directions and sources. Like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful phenomenon, and then it feels really good, and it's so, out of the blue, and Those are the things that the mind cannot wrap itself around, but when you're deep in the old paradigm and you're really wanting to get out, because that's who my audience is. My audience is those that are wanting to get out of their old paradigm energy. You have to realize that you have allowed the ego, the part that said, turn left, don't look at the answers, we're never going to have the answers, see, we're fine, right? It's all that. Then, my work in the world is to shine the light to say, no, turn right. All the answers are here. I'm not going to do it for you, but I'll hold space for you, and I will show you step by step how to turn right, and then you do, and then you're right. It's this fresh breath of air of, wow, it is, oh my gosh. And I want to bring up a point there too, because sometimes when we do have the initial turning towards our love and our light and start receiving it, we also can ironically have our ego own it and say, see how great we are so amazing, look how much we're now doing here. Okay, so it's a tricky dance, because then you have to realize, the ego wants to celebrate that it had something to do with this too. But in a minute, the ego will destroy everything. So in this instance, I'm going to tune into my heart and let my heart know, thank you, soul, thank you, wisdom, thank you, and I'm going to keep following you, because you're the one that knows the higher point of view. You're the part of me that knows where we're going. Why would I not trust that you're the greatest GPS system of my life?
Let's spend another moment on ego too, because it's obviously becoming a big part of the conversation we're having here, and it's a big part of the conversation we all have with ourselves as we're carrying on our journeys. Ego is a concept and it's an abstraction, and as a result, the concept and abstraction of ego can be difficult to latch onto. It can be difficult to understand what it really is. How do you approach the idea of ego? How would you define it, if you will?
Okay, so my answer might not be where you're going, but it's
right.
It's like if we're in a pool of mud, I'm not going to have you stare at the mud and define the mud. I'm going to say, get out of the mud and go over here to the sunny, beautiful, golden, radiant ocean, water flowing and a breeze on you in the hammock, and sit here and feel this for a while. And then when you felt this for a while, go look at the muddy water, and from this new point of view, you will be able to see what that muddy water was. And that's
so in
how
a sense,
I feel
the
about
ego is the place where we're stuck. The ego isn't so much a thing as a state of restricted being, so to speak.
The ego, in my eyes, wasn't set out to be necessarily this limitation or this restriction in ways and times in the world where there wasn't really a necessary time to evolve. But now we are in a generational time over the last 40 years at least of evolving in the way of my point of view of evolving, which is from a spiritual awakening. And so the ego is not needed to play the role that it once did. And so we are now needing to get out of the muck and the myrrh, out of the struggle and the pain, which the ego consistently creates for karmic reasons and many other reasons. Then we remove ourselves, we are become the silent observer of it, and we experience our true self. And as we do that, it's more like that for me. Just continue to focus on who you really are. And the ego will give you glimpses of who it was, but it begins to be in your peripheral instead of it being where you're making all your choices from. And so for me, the ego it's an energy that can be neutral, and then it can weigh itself in all kinds of components to help you have the old paradigm experience. I mean, it's a perfect thing for an old paradigmer. You want to live.
Talk about what that role was. I mean, there was a positive role at that point in the old paradigm. It made the old paradigm work. But what was it that made the ego so effective in that paradigm?
Well, the goal in the old paradigm is to forget who you really are. So one of the goals the ego met was, great, I will help you forget who you really are by helping you focus on your mom's behavior, dad's behavior, sibling's behavior, this painful behavior, these judgments, these manipulative, these control mechanisms, these, I'm going to have you focus on, learning life through the lenses of what each individual is here to learn. And this goes on to a whole nother subject really for me around why each individual really came to earth and what your soul wanted you to learn. And so the ego partners with your soul to say, oh, you want to learn about love by being abused? Okay, cool. I'll do my role as the ego to make sure you are consistently abused. And then, okay, right? So it plays its role. It does its thing. But let's say the ego is just on autopilot. It's just a computer. It just goes back to the abuse. But you're in your 30s now, and you're not interested in continually being abused. But if you listen to the ego and you let the ego tell you what it wants to tell you to how you're always going to attract people in your life who will abuse you, you don't want to listen to that anymore. So you want to get on the bridge of remembrance and start to listen to the part of you that's going to say, okay, great, you learned that, and now let me teach you something new. So then the ego has to step back.
So in a sense, the ego is, in modern parlance, it's kind of like a smartphone app. It's something that you downloaded because you had a need for it, but if you continue to try to use it to do all the things that you want to do in your life, you find it becomes limiting, and you can't really do much more with it than what you'd originally intended to do with it. And what you originally intended, you don't need the app for that anymore, and yet you continue to try to use the app. It's kind of the same thing in sort of an analogic sort of way.
Perfect analogy, yes. Yeah, so it's time to upgrade your app or get
rid of
it.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of apps.
There are, except for, here's the thing, like if someone's going to demolish a building, and it's a 500-story building, let's be, go big here, they're not going to go to every room and put a dynamite into it. They're going to find key areas, let's say 500 floors, they're going to find 50 key areas throughout the whole building that if and when it detonates, the building's just going to crumble perfectly. It's not going to topple and destroy everything around it. It's just going to fall vertically down, and everything's going to be fine. And, people will study how to do this. I mean, there's an art to demolishing buildings.
Right.
This is what it's like to go in to clear the old. Your true self knows where to put the bombs, if you will, to help you see where they are and gather your attention. And then you go in and you set them free. I mean, we're not blowing anything up here. We're setting it free. But when we do it under a common theme of a building of, let's say anger, and we find these 50 different areas, which may seem like a lot, but if there's 50,000 and we only need to find 50, we're clearing so many layers of it, But the same, on the same note, it's like, are you going to sit in the muddy, mucky myrrh and try to find all these for yourself and try to figure it out? That's when people get feeling hopeless and they want to give up and they just want to go back in their comfort zone. So, you've got to move over to the lighter side of life, if you will, and begin to recognize, oh, this is a journey, this is a process. Like, I got this, I feel good about this, and I get it. I mean, we don't always feel good about our journey and doing it, kind of like you mentioned earlier. When is this ever going to end? I mean, how many more layers of this do I have?
Right.
If you're always in your ego while you're doing this work and let your ego guide the way, you're going to keep saying that because the ego is going to keep saying that to you. When is this going to be enough? We've already done this. We've already looked at this. Well, if it's still prevalent in your life, then it hasn't been cleared. And, the guidance is, try something new. Go over to your heart and begin to ask for help. Begin to receive the help. Put it into guidance and become the observer of your ego. So that you can, yeah.
And in a sense, step out of your comfort zone.
Oh, we have to. We have to step out of our comfort zone. But we don't have to step out of our comfort zone like we're being thrown into the middle of a jungle with no supplies.
Right.
We get, when we go out of our comfort zone by taking our soul in our hands and saying, please guide me, we're given everything we ever need to get out of our comfort zone and ultimately get into a different zone that's way more amazing and pleasurable and beautiful and exciting. Yeah.
And that, of course, ties in very strongly with what you now do. You're a soul and life coach. Soul and life coach. I've heard the term life coach a lot. I don't think I've ever heard anyone describe themselves as a soul coach. How would you differentiate the two? What's a soul coach and what's a life coach, and how do they work together?
Okay, so for me, the life coaching part comes kind of like you're hearing me talk a little bit today. It's like I want to coach people to find their true self. And the soul part comes in this, okay? So there might be a particular niche that life coaches have, like I'm going to help people with their relationships only, or finances only, their, the career purpose, life purpose only. As a soul life coach, what I do is I say, we have to get to the core of it all. And that is, you may show up in your life unhappy with relationships, and you might be okay in your career and your finances, but it's a relationships part, but it's not really about me being your relationship coach. It's about me saying, come back to your soul and learn this core element so that every area of your life you will understand how to navigate. Because someone may come with relationship issues and then they start to navigate their soul and listen to it, and all of a sudden they realize they're not happy in their career. And they're not happy, with this, that, and the other. But they have the one ultimate, for them, solution, which is no matter what's going on in my life from any angle, if I can begin to understand the wisdom of my soul that will guide me through anything and everything, then I can handle all these things that will be shifting. Because once you're, ready for this kind of work, your whole life will shift. And so that's what I'm about. I'm like the hub of the wheel, and each of the spokes is going to look different for everyone. And so my role is not to get into each spoke per se, but to actually come back to the center. And so, it's also a soul life coach, because the group live calls that I do, I do use my gift. I tune right in to the voice of the group's energy, and I channel the messages for people. I tune into exactly what the whole group needs, and then when each person has their own spoke that they bring to me, then I have a way to bring them clarity, wisdom, and guidance. It's like they're at that allowing phase, and I'm just a direct channel for that. Like, okay, let's cut to the chase. Here's what's going on. Right? And so I'm guiding them once they're done with the time with me. Okay, keep going. Now you can go in appreciation. Now you can activate. So it's an empowering journey, but we all need help with clarity along these paths. So that's what soul part is. It's like one angle I'm offering up the gift of who I am, and as a direct channel to be able to tune into everyone's soul and bring them clarity and guidance. And I'm guiding people through coaching them step by step to tune back into the truth of who they really are as their soul's wisdom and guidance.
Now, there are going to be some people who will listen to this interview who will think to themselves, well, first of all, there will be some people who will doubt the whole thing. It doesn't fit their religious beliefs, it doesn't fit their view on life or whatever else. But there are also going to be some people who they're open to the idea, they're open to what you're talking about, what you're trying to explain. But there's that ego getting in the way, saying, I can see how other people might be able to do this, but I can't do that. This is one of those things that only some people can do, and you either have the gift to be able to connect in and hear your own soul and whatever it is that you were saying, but there's just some of us who just, it's not going to be available to us. What do you say to them?
Well, what I have to say about any of this is that, action speaks louder than your inner mind's ego. So, if you are listening to this and you have that mind say, we're not going to be able to do this, we can't, start noticing that is your ego. You can't leave this call, this radio show, without actually having a different perspective, even if you want to deny and resist all of it. You're definitely here for a reason, listening and taking this in and having something that's a curious eye upon this. And so everyone listening is going to get exactly what they need. I am unattached to all of it. I know that my role is just to show up and shine the light, and that everyone else's role is just to shine their own light and show up. And so if the ego, which it will, I mean, it's just like I'm telling you, it will show up in some way to help you run away from change. So what you do about that is you prove it wrong, and you take action in one area of your life that will step you out of the old comfort zone. And that's you starting to turn right. And that's when you'll start to receive something, someone, somehow, Spirit will work to show you confirmation that, you know what, you took action even when your mind wanted you to sit still. And I'm going to, kind of reward you for it. I'm going to show you what that action, as you continue to take it, will bring you, right? So action speaks way louder than any of your mental thoughts can ever do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you dare to take a step, wondrous things can happen just out of nowhere when you don't expect them. When you least expect them, that's when they tend to happen. If someone dares to find out more about your program, where can they find out more about it?
Yeah, so just go to my site. It's kellycanull.com, which is KELLYCANULL.com. And on my homepage, there are 4 free, amazing, valuable tools that I offer you. So I just invite you to go to the homepage and sign right up for the complimentary tools and start to get into this beautiful energy work. Like I said, one of the gifts is a free chapter of my book. You also get a guided meditation to help you clear a block. So that's great, especially for skeptics or anyone who's questioning this. Go have your own direct experience. Just listen to this 10-minute guided meditation for free, and you will clear one of your blocks. And you will have your own, your own experience of it. And through that process, then, there's more I teach about the 4 A's on there, and there's an opportunity to have a 40-minute discovery call as well, where we can look and see if my program, Living the Truth of Who You Really Are Now, is a good fit. So it's just a great, no pressure, step right up, take action, do something different, receive something different, full love from me to you. And if you're interested in, the program and any private coaching, that comes down the road. I also do offer soul coaching session, like a 1-hour session to give people the experience if they'd like to just dial right in and have a beautiful experience of their soul talking directly to them. So I offer that as well. And all of it can be found on my site, kellycanull.com.
Very good. Kelly Canull, soul and life coach. And Kelly, it's been delightful hearing your very unique take on the kind of thing that we often talk about with all of the guests that come to this program. But your approach is certainly one of the most remarkably unique in the sense that, like you say, you get right to the core of it. You get to the core of what happens spiritually as we get further into spiritual journeys that do take us out of the comfort zone and do put us into growth and moving away from old patterns that don't serve us anymore and that kind of thing. So thank you very much for sharing all that with us.
You are welcome. I've enjoyed my time with you and everyone who's able to be a part of this. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.